I'm ready to get ready to sand it. So I want to do one more thing here. I want to go ahead and round out this. I won't cut it off. I won't part it, but I do want to do a half bead here so that the end has a nice shape. It's good enough for now. And then the next thing I want to do is put a little decoration in it. So what I usually do is I'll put 3 lines here. Three lines here. I need a little support there to avoid vibration. I try to get them even. I don't always get them even, but I do my best. And then I burn them. And to burn them, I use, let me turn this off a second. I use a wedge. This is a wedge, and it comes from making spatulas. When I make spatulas, I have to cut kind of a wedge shape, and these pieces are left. I get 2 of these for each spatulas I make. So I have plenty of these. Can make a lot of spatulas, and they're great for making these lines. So just put it in there. Let it burn. Let it burn. Let it burn. And I usually just throw these away after 1 or 2 spoons or spatulas. Okay, so now I sanded. I'm not going to do the full sanding tonight, but I will do a little bit so you can see the idea here. So let's turn it down pretty slow. And I'm going to start with 120. The only thing I'm going to sand is the the handle, and maybe just a little bit up on the scoop part.
Neal, is that wood you're using, maple or poplar?
Yes, I'm using hard maple. I always use hard maple because it works great. Hard maple is wonderful for this. I've used the soft maple and it didn't work very well. I've used cherry and it works okay, but really the hard maple I think is the best. I think it looks great and it turns very nicely.
And where do you get your wood stock? Mostly I've only seen 3/4 inch.
Where do I get my wood?
Where do you get your wood stock?
Was that the question?
Yeah, where do you buy it?
This I bought at Dakota. Dakota Lumber, it's in North Dallas somewhere. You can look it up. Dakota, just like the North and South. And really, they're pretty inexpensive. It costs about $3, a little over $3 a board foot. So I figure the wood for one of these costs around $1, a little less than $1. Okay, let's look and see.
That jig on your tailstock, did you make it on 3D print?
Did you catch that, Steve?
Yeah, she wants to know if you made the tailstock piece with your 3D print.
Yes, it's 3D printed. Yeah. Oh yeah, and if anybody wants one, if you're in the club and you want one, just let me know. I'll print one out for you and send it to you, or you can come and pick it up or something. So I made 2 things with the 3D printer: the tailstock jig and then the safety shield. Okay, so I'm ready to part it off now. So I'm going to go ahead and extend this bead a little bit further. And then I will use a parting tool, part it. And I just have a thin piece holding it on. I can just break that off. And that's the start of the spoon. Now, that's most of the work's done now. The rest of it's sanding, basically, which is not the fun part. But let me show you how I sand it. Belt sander, but I don't have a belt sander handy here, so I'm just going to use this. This is just a disc that rotates with the lathe. Let's see. And then I have a platform that I can put that goes up next to the sanding disc. And I'm set to go. So first thing I want to do is, let's see, if you look at that, okay, you can see this curve. I want to extend that curve to the front. So let's do that. I would trust, the question is, how about zip ties instead of U-bolts? Probably would work, but I feel more comfortable with U-bolts. I think it'd hold a lot better. Okay, so I'm just going to kind of roll this around. To continue the curve. Not too bad, looks pretty good. And now what I'm going to do is rub the back. Just to get it nice, well, to get it smoother. I can get this out of the way now. So I think I held it there a little longer than I should have, so it's not going to look great, but you'll get the idea here. Okay. Once I get it to about that point, I stop on the lathe. Maybe I can get that a little bit better there. Yeah. Okay. All right, that's good enough. And now I use 80 grit. And I do some by hand. So I just smooth this out. It really doesn't take very long. But I just want to get it so that it is a nice smooth curve. Okay, and then I go through whatever grits you want, whatever grits I want. I usually go up to 400 or so. I'm not going to do that tonight, but I still have to sand the inside. Now, I used to sand it by hand, and I don't recommend that. It works, but it's very slow. So what I found, oh yeah, also I have to sand the this little nub off, and that's easy to do too. So it's off, and now I just go ahead and sand it by hand. It only takes a few minutes. Okay, so how about sanding the scoop part? Well, I'll show you how I do that. This is much easier than doing it by hand, but it is a little expensive and has some of its own issues. I use this. Let's see, this is inflatable. And these little cups are sandpaper. So this is an 80 grit sandpaper here. I'll insert it. And then there's I have a little bicycle pump basically. You pump it up a little bit. So let's see, I don't know if you can see what I'm doing there, but there, it's inflated. And now I want to mount it to the lathe. So I'll put it in a Jacobson chuck. Insert the Jacobson chuck. And I'm ready to sand. Okay, so I'm just going to this inflatable round sanding device is advertised for sanding bowls. And you can see, since it's round like that, it should do a good job of that. I haven't tried it on a bowl yet. I just got this last week, in fact. And it makes making these spoons much easier because the sanding this interior part is the hardest part. And with this, it's very easy. So that's 80 grit. Normally I would go ahead and do 120 and all the way up to 400. And that makes the spoon. Now I still have to sand along the edge here to get that rounded. So I'll go ahead and do that. I'll use 80 grit for that too. Again, this doesn't take very long. It just takes a little bit of patience. Well, there
When you're
you see.
making,
That's a spoon.
Neil, when you're making a bunch of these, how long does it take you to put a spoon together?
How long does it take to make one? If I'm making, how much per spoon if I'm making a bunch of them at a time? Usually I can make them, I haven't really timed it carefully, but I'm thinking that I can probably, if I make say 8 of them, I could probably do them in an afternoon of 4 hours, half an hour each maybe. If you're just making one, of course, it takes longer because it's just changing jigs and things like that. So yeah, it doesn't take too long, but it's not, and the first one will take you a lot longer. So what I wanted to say too was this, if you want to make 3 spoons, you might want to learn to carve a spoon and just make it that way instead of doing it this way, because here you've got to make some, you have to have these jigs, and that takes some time. So probably, unless you're going to make several, like if you're making for gifts and you want to make a dozen of them, then it might be efficient to go ahead and do it this way. I sell them at a community market, so for me, it's fairly efficient to do this.
How much you selling for?
I've been selling them for $15. I think I might have to raise the price. Other questions? Oh, I did want to show you a little graphic. So can you go ahead and give me permission to share my screen?
Neil, before you get away from that, where do you get your inflatable sanding?
Oh, yeah, good question.
contraption?
Yeah, good question. The inflatable sanding, whatever it is, you can get them at Woodcraft. You can get them at Rockler. You can get them on Amazon. If you just look for inflatable sanding something holder or something like that, you'll find them. It costs $59 for one. The thing that's really expensive about it is not just that it costs $59, but the sandpaper itself costs about $5. Now, I don't know how long it'll last. This one I've done several spoons on and it's still pretty good. So that can be an expense. But my plan is once this one's worn out, my plan is to take it apart and make my own if I can, because all they did is took a flat piece of, over here we go, took a flat piece of sandpaper, cut it a certain way, and then folded it up. So, you know, if I can figure out what that is, I can make a little jig or something and just cut around it and then fold it up myself, and that'd be a lot cheaper. But that's in the future. I haven't tried that yet. The other thing I don't like about this is it's kind of a pain in the neck to change sandpaper, because they don't have a valve on it. You have to loosen this nut, this piece comes up, and then you have to get it tucked in just right and tighten it back down. So it's kind of a pain in the neck. So sometimes I only use this piece for maybe 80 grit and 120 grit. And after that, I just do it by hand, because the rest of it's pretty easy after you get the first few grits through. Okay, so can I share my screen now?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to share my screen.
Neal?
Yeah.
You can take a sharp, something a little heavier than a needle, and where you pump it up, you slide it in there and it will release the air out of it.
You know, I wondered if I could do that, but I was kind of afraid to try because I didn't want to ruin it. The thing cost $59. I didn't want to, but I'll give that a try. Something a little longer than a needle, and yeah.